What's up with it? You watching the Bay Bomber TV. And yeah, we about to check out this video from the YouTube channel The Black Boat. And the title is Daz exposed what he saw behind closed doors at death row, and it shocked everyone. Yeah, man, I'm so full with it, man. Daz definitely been campaigning, speaking his mind, man. And yeah, man, Daz definitely a super producer, man. Even if he don't got the stamp, man, we know he a super producer, you know what I mean? And yeah, man, not only he got played by Death Row Records, man, he got played by Dr. Dre too, man. So yeah, man, it seemed like Dre ain't no better than Suge in certain situations, for real. But yeah, man, honestly, man, I think Daz definitely had love for Tupac, man. I think when he said we made Pac or whatever, man, his words could have been kind of twisted a little bit. I think it would have sounded better if he would have said we made all eyes on me, you know what I mean? That would have made more sense for sure. Because we know Pac was already platinum before he went to death row, you know what I mean? But really though, man, I don't think Daz had no reason to be hating on Pac, because he was right there producing for Pac, you know what I mean? So he was part of the history being made. I think the only person really had a reason to be jealous was Snoop Dogg, because Snoop Dogg was the top dog until Tupac came. So that was really his competition, you know what I mean? But yeah, man, I haven't checked out the video. Don't completely know what they talking about, but let's check it out and see what they talking about.
And then, but they wanted somebody to represent Death Row Records, and Tupac was the candidate. And I just told him, man, don't let this gangbanging get between us. You know what I mean? Because I see what they do, and they want you to represent MOB. And that's just what he did.
The man who co-produced some of the most valuable songs in hip-hop history has never been properly paid for them.
That's crazy to me, man. I mean, it's been over 30 years and you still haven't got paid for that. The money you were supposed to be getting.
Not by Suge Knight, not by Death Row, not by the corporate entities that passed the catalog around like a hot asset for 30 years, and not by his own cousin who bought the company 3 years ago and has not opened the book since. Daz Dillinger was inside Death Row from the very beginning. He saw everything. And what he is finally saying out loud in interviews and now in court filings is the version of that story that the people who profited from his work have spent 3 decades hoping he would never tell.
That was Death Row Records. Suge Knight, he didn't have no royalty department. So he was just giving out money, and doing the shit, you know what I'm saying? Until the white folks got it, which was Koch. And then E1 after they f***ed off Koch, then they f***ed off E1, and now they have Monarch. So when you change that many hands and names and business.
The world knows Daz
Running
is half
from
of the dog pound. What most people do not know is that in 1991, he was living with Dr. Dre in an apartment on Whitley and Sunset in Hollywood, in the room where the Chronic was being built from nothing. He was not a guest. He was in the studio every day, producing, rapping, learning the architecture of what would become the most commercially dominant sound in hip-hop history. He absorbed everything: drum machines, keyboards, the Korg M1, the layering techniques that made Death Row Records sound unlike anything coming from the East Coast at the time. He was 20 years old and he was helping build a machine that would generate hundreds of millions of dollars across 3 decades. He has never received a royalty statement for his contributions to that album.
Crazy, man.
I ain't gonna lie, it's crazy that Dre gonna let his protege get played like that. You know what I mean? Like, you being so rich and knowing it's your protege and he got played like that, man. You should just throw him a bag or something, man. Make it right. Or at least give him his credits on the Chronic. You know what I mean? For real though, man. Yeah, man, when it comes to Dre and Snoop, man, I think they shady because they was like in shady situations getting played by labels, but then they took the same tactics and they be playing people. You know what I mean? That's a cold game, man. And yeah, man, there's a few people that said Drake left them off credits and stuff like that, man. So yeah, man, it really seemed like you got to be a little shady to get filthy rich in the music industry.
Man, hopefully you get your money, man. I could imagine, Dre and Snoop, they can make some calls, right? And help you get some of your money.
Man, Dre sold that shit, man, for a couple of $100 million. He ain't got nothing to do with it no more. It's all Universal. And that's the same thing with Tupac, like E1. They got rid of E1,
So yeah, man, that's crazy. Dre already got cashed out for the album or whatever, but still ain't throw Dash nothing, man. That's cold.
Tupac's All Eyez on Me and gave Snoop back the Doggy Style. You know what I'm saying? But all this paper, well, where's the paperwork at?
When Tupac Shakur signed to Death Row in October 1995, Daz was one of the first people in the building to understand what it actually meant. He describes the day Tupac got out of prison with the clarity of someone who was present for a moment that was about to change everything. They went to Monty's restaurant, Lobster, Cristal, the kind of celebration that felt like the beginning of something big. Then they went straight to the studio and made Ambitions as a Rida that same night.
Man.
Daz produced it.
Yeah, he got out of jail. We went to Monty's, ate some lobster and Cristal and had a real good time. And then we going to the studio. And that's when we made Ambitions of a Rider. Ambitions of a Rider made the tempo for All Eyez on Me. Anything after that?
The tempo of
I ain't gonna lie, man. That's one of Pac's hardest songs for real, though. You know what I mean? Like Pac got a lot of deep songs and all that, but like when it come down to the rider music, though, that was one of Pac's hardest songs for real.
that song, he says, set the standard for everything that followed on All Eyez on Me. Before the session was over, Daz pulled Tupac aside. He told him directly, "Do not let this gang banging get between us." He said he could see what Death Row wanted Tupac to represent, and he wanted his friend to understand the difference between the persona and the trap. Tupac heard him. Then he kept going anyway.
And you know what I'm saying? And I got him to the side because I seen what Death Row was doing. And I said, man, don't let this gang banging get between us. You know what I'm saying? We friends now, but I see that they want you to, represent Death Row. We represent Dog Pound. We really didn't represent Death Row. We never really screamed out Death Row, Death Row. We screamed out Dog Pound.
Daz produced or
I don't know about that. Definitely remember hearing Snoop saying Death Row back in them days, man. So Snoop was repping Death Row, man.
co-produced Ambitions as a Rida, Scandalous, Got My Mind Made Up, two of America's Most Wanted, and I Ain't Mad at Ya, among others, on All Eyez on Me. The album debuted at number
Crazy
one,
album.
sold 5 million copies in the United States within months of release, and became the first double album in hip-hop history to go diamond. Daz was in that studio for all of it. He was writing, producing, laying down drum patterns and arrangements for songs that have been generating revenue continuously for 30 years.
I ain't gonna lie, man. Daz was all over that album, man. So I can't see him being jealous of Tupac, man, for real, though. And yeah, man, like I was saying, the only person that really was competition to Pac at that time was Snoop Dogg. And he blew past Snoop, man. I remember it was a time where Snoop was like 4 times platinum. Pac was 6 times platinum, man. So if they was in competition, man, Pac definitely had the lead.
When he requested his royalties from Amaru Entertainment in October 2024, the company that manages Tupac's music assets sent him a check for $91,000. No royalty statement, no breakdown, no accounting of what the songs had earned, across which platforms, in which territories, under which licensing agreements. Just a number on a piece of paper with no explanation attached.
Just enough copies, you know what I'm saying? My next one is the dog food. You know what I'm saying? I'm pressing up anything that I ain't get paid for. You know what I'm saying? And why should they go? It's not on big platforms. They still got iTunes. They still got Spotify. I'm just selling this shit out the garage online, my garage online, you know.
Behind the closed doors at Death Row, things were happening that had nothing to do with music. Daz describes the environment with the matter-of-fact directness of someone who has processed it over decades and is no longer interested in softening any of it. Sam Snead came into a Death Row session and did not have West Coast rappers in his music video. Tupac and the people around him took him into the studio and beat him. Daz and Nate Dogg were in that room strapped. Their plan, if things escalated beyond what could be controlled, was to shoot toward the door and run. Not because they were looking for violence, because in that building at that time, violence could arrive without notice from any direction, and the people who survived were the ones who were already prepared for it when it came.
And once he let us know it was Death Row Security, Frank, you know, Frank from Tupac, we niggas get up and get the fuck up out of there. Video over with. Now we go to LA and start kicking the buildings over. You know what I mean? Because Funk Master Flex and Biggie got on the radio and just told them, this is where them niggas at. That's the address. That's where they at, Times Square, represent New York. It was over with then.
There was a night when
And that's crazy because Snoop blamed Tupac for the issues with Big or whatever, man. But Big got y'all hit up, man. So yeah, man, if they was gonna have issues with Big, man, it was beyond Tupac, man. For real though. Yeah, man, I think Snoop could have been like on some sneaky stuff, like trying to act like it was cool, but it really wasn't. Or Snoop was just plain old scary, man. For real.
A Bad Boy affiliate ended up inside a death row function and people were preparing to make him drink urine. Daz grabbed the man's wallet from whoever had it, slipped the wallet back to him, and pushed him out the door before anyone could stop it from happening. He says it directly. He saved that man's life. The man never knew who did it. Death row had become an environment where that...
Man, I ain't gonna lie, that was a fool making people drink urine and stuff, man. I ain't gonna lie. I remember back in the days, man, it was a rumor that they made Snoop drink the urine, man. I don't know, though, man. That rumor somewhat disappeared from online, but I remember hearing that rumor, though.
That kind of thing required a calculation before acting. You assessed who was in the room, what weapons were accessible, and what the consequences of intervening were going to be before you moved. Daz moved. He pushed him out and kept walking.
So the reason why her album was pushed back is because Tupac got killed.
Yeah, that fucked everything up for everybody, you know, because everybody was scrambling and everybody was stealing. Suge was in jail, and you know what I mean? And you had Reggie Wright acting like he was Suge Knight, wearing red and shit, big fat butterball, bean eating motherfucker, you know what I mean? So he was playing like he was Suge Knight. And
after Tupac was shot and shoved...
I ain't gonna lie, the crazy thing about Reggie White taking over or whatever, man, Suge said he wasn't even supposed to be running the label. Suge basically said he don't even know how he got in position to be trying to run the label, for real, though. And when that Fed had spoke out or whatever, man, he said Reggie had motives, man. He was trying to take over Death Row, man. So Reggie definitely a questionable dude, man, for real.
Went to prison. A power vacuum opened at Death Row that produced its own particular chaos. Reggie Wright Jr., the head of security, started walking around the building in red, holding meetings, signing things, acting in Daz's words like the new Suge Knight.
Later on,
that's crazy.
You know, when you start having all that money, you know, Suge was just throwing that the money pile, you know what I'm saying? And feeling like this and that, and he seen all the niggas that was, you know, some penitentiary big niggas, you know what I mean? So he just felt like, I can't be stopped. You know what I'm saying? Especially after you going after Biggie and Puffy, you need some niggas. You know what I'm saying?
A man Daz describes with specific and colorful contempt was suddenly running the day-to-day operations of a label whose founder was in a cell. The people who had built the music watched the people who had managed the logistics try to convert that access into ownership. Daz watched it happen from inside the building and started making calculations about what he needed to take before the taking was done.
Shit, it stands for the Mod Pie Roof to me, you know what I'm saying? Compton, you know, Bullets Boulevard, that's the Compton Swap Meet. That's what, you know, I'm from Long Beach, so I know what the MOB stands for. He just made another definition for it. You know what I'm saying? So you should understand it when you represent that, but we all knew, because we from Long Beach and everything to us is gangbang literature.
He went to the death row.
I ain't gonna lie, with Pac really not knowing all of the gang lingo out there, he was dissing these dudes though, man. Because it had been a few times where he said like the dog pound or whatever, and then it say MOB, you know what I mean? Like in the gang world, that's somewhat like dissing a little bit, you know what I mean? But yeah, man, it seemed like that probably did cause a little rift between a dog pound and Tupac or whatever, man, for real.
Office on mushrooms. He had a long diesel screwdriver in his hand. He walked past the managers, past the people blocking the door, and went directly toward the person he needed to find. When Suge Knight came in and saw the screwdriver and looked at Daz's eyes, the conversation did not take long.
And I came in the office, I was demanding my money from the Sunset Park soundtrack. And they was talking shit, the managers and shit in there, and Suge's brother-in-law. And so I had one of them motherfucking screwdrivers, one of them diesel screwdrivers, you know, them big long ones. And I ran up on his ass like that, and he was like, ah, and as I know Suge come in the office, and the way he looked at me and the way he grabbed me, like put his arms around me, I know that clobber, you know, the clobber thing, you know. So I told him, hey.
Daz left with $150,000 in cash. His own words about that moment are precise. All you had to do was trip. You were going to get some money. It was that easy. The implication sitting underneath those words is not lost on anyone paying attention. The people running that building responded to pressure and to the credible possibility of chaos. They did not respond to politely worded requests or contracts or the legitimate expectation of payment for work already delivered.
So basically, you'll complain about your money or whatever that they playing you out of. Then they'll throw you pennies and stuff, so you would just be quiet. You know what I mean? So yeah, man, it definitely was some bad business going on.
I had that screwdriver in my hand, and I was like, he's seen it in my eyes. I'll stick your ass. And that's who I know. Me and Corrupt went in the office, and then he gave me $150,000.
The night he found out Tupac had been shot, Daz's first thought was not about the hospital or the prognosis. He says it plainly. The first thing that came to his mind was that the devil was not dead. He meant Suge Knight. He grabbed his gun. Then he went to death row and took his reels before anyone could get to them. He had been watching people scramble to fake paperwork, change contract language, get artists to sign things they did not understand, and strip credits from recordings the moment Suge lost control of the building. He was not going to let his music become part of that scramble. He loaded his reels into a truck, drove away with a weapon in his hand, and kept what was his before the people who would have taken it understood what was happening.
So he made splits to benefit himself, you know what I'm saying? And then go take our property as collateral to these companies and get millions of dollars for it, and then give us none. And then go into bankruptcy, and now we got to fight E1 and everybody over fake paperwork and shit like that. You know what I'm saying? I'm suing, but I don't really want no money. Just give me the rights. Because once I get the rights, I'm going to get the money.
Afeni Shakur later sued him for those reels. She believed they contained unreleased Tupac recordings that belonged to the estate. They settled out of court in 2002. Daz gave her what he had because he wanted her to know that he had produced those songs and that Death Row had been claiming ownership of work he had made. The settlement did not resolve the underlying question of what he was owed.
I ain't gonna lie, cold thing when he already didn't get credit for a lot of other stuff he did, man. So Daz got played big time, man.
It just moved the paperwork.
When Pac came to Death Row, who albums was pushed back?
Rage. That's it, really. After All Eyez on Me, Rage was next. And so after I finished producing All Eyez on Me and he finished doing all that, then I started working on Rage album.
Now in May 2026, 30 years after All Eyez on Me was recorded, Daz filed a lawsuit against Amaru Entertainment demanding a full audit of every dollar generated by the songs he co-wrote and produced, every revenue stream, every platform, every licensing deal, every territory, every sync deal and sample clearance and streaming arrangement that has put money into an account connected to those recordings across 3 decades. The complaint names Ambitions as a Rida, Scandalous, Got My Mind Made Up, 2 of America's Most Wanted, and I Ain't Mad at Cha specifically. His attorney's position is direct. At a minimum, Amaru has failed to render statements and pay sums due. The precise amount owed will be determined after a full accounting.
And so they switched that, and this was the last 30 years, because, you know, after 35 years, it's up. Everybody get their stuff. So that's why they sold it to Snoop for the last 5 years, so he could manipulate everybody, suck them back in, because that money flowing real good over there.
The complication sitting at the center of all of this is that the company currently managing Death Row Records is owned by Snoop Dogg, Daz's cousin. Snoop purchased Death Row in February 2022, becoming the owner of the catalog that includes decades of work by artists who were never properly compensated under Sugar's operation.
You know, he going off bad paperwork that he's abiding by. You know, they forged a lot of paperwork and he know it, but he looking like, damn, Daz got a lot of shit over here.
Daz says Snoop has not paid him a single royalty since acquiring the label. He is accusing his cousin of using artist money to cover his own staff salaries. He says Snoop blocked him from production credits on the Dog Pound's 2024 album to keep the production money for himself. He says Snoop is moving towards selling the entire Death Row catalog to Universal Music Group for approximately $1 billion, and that the artist whose work gives that catalog its value will see none of it.
He bought Michelle
be cold.
Leonore, and he had no idea about any of this, yo.
I really don't know. I mean, we was steadily getting paid $20,000 to $30,000 a month. You know what I mean? And that's why he probably had no royalty statements and all that shit now. But now it's a different story. You know what I'm saying? Snoop got it now, and me and him selling out our business. You know what I'm saying?
Snoop's response to Daz going public with these accusations arrived quickly and without softening. He said directly, "In a minute, I'm going to mess you up, cuz. Not physically,
Yeah.
business-wise. That is not a denial of the
Oh,
underlying
that's
accusations. It is a threat delivered in the language of two people who understand that the battlefield they are on is made of contracts and copyright filings rather than anything else." Daz responded on Instagram, repeated his claims, and kept going. He has filed his copyright reversion paperwork. His rights come back to him in 2027 and 2028 under the terms of copyright law. Once that happens, he says, he is not clearing anything. Every sample, every license, every platform deal that uses his work will require his authorization.
Yeah, man, cold game, man. Daz definitely got dead dirty, man. And like I was saying, man, he should be known as like the super producer Daz Dillinger, to be honest, man. Yeah, man, for Snoop, man, I remember seeing Snoop talking about he was gonna give everybody their rights and make everything right for everybody, but he ain't made nothing right for nobody so far, man. And yeah, man, he got the business all the way in 2022, man. And to be honest, man, Death Row ain't dropped like no real fire hits or nothing like that, man. I think they got like some decent rappers or whatever, man, but they kind of like era lock. They more like old school kind of gangster rap, you know what I mean? So far, Snoop ain't been doing well running Death Row, man. I think Death Row just got like a dark cloud over it. I barely can understand why he even wanted to go and get Death Row, man. I think Death Row just a thing in the past, man. But yeah, man, it seemed like Pac mom game was tight though, man. She was like, "Where's my son's stuff at?" You know what I'm saying? And yeah, man, I think when some rappers pass, man, they parents probably don't know nothing about the business, man. And probably did get robbed by the label for real. But yeah, man, I want to thank everybody that been rocking with the channel, tapping in, leaving comments and all that, man. I appreciate y'all for real though. But yeah, man, let me know what y'all think in the comments. Like, share, and subscribe. You watching the Big Bomber TV. Thanks for watching. Thanks for supporting. Until next time. All right.